So today we're gonna go over the Darth Plagueis novel. Just kind of my thoughts, my opinions on everything. Basically, this is probably my favorite book I've ever read. Something I've loved for a long time. I started reading the Star Wars books when I was a kid, but I didn't really start getting into them heavy until probably 2020. I read Darth Plagueis I think when I was like 21, just kind of on a trip. Sorry, I'm just a little out of breath, but anyway. So we're gonna go over the book kind of in a simple way, and then how it affected Star Wars timeline. Now, Darth Plagueis himself. So, Darth Plagueis, his name is Higo Damask, and he is a Mune. Munes are from Munilist, and so these guys are kind of weird looking. They're in the Clone Wars. That's where I think the first time you see them. But they have these kind of weird egg-shaped heads with a long neck, and they're usually bankers or loners. They always work with money. Their planet is a big banking planet. Now, Higo Damask, who is Plagueis, is the master of Palpatine, Emperor Palpatine, Sheev Palpatine. Now, in this book, it talks about how he is able to persuade Palpatine to become his co-conspirator, kind of in politics. So Darth Plagueis, before he becomes a Sith, he works with politics, he works with banking, and his whole family is involved with the Intergalactic Banking Clan, the IBC. Now, you see these guys a lot in the Clone Wars, and you see basically everything that they do. They are the reason that everybody has ships. They are the reason that people are able to have food. They are the banks. So it's really cool to see this in the book and see how he explains it from Darth Plagueis' perspective. And I think that when you see things in a perspective in Star Wars from reality, now that kind of sounds weird, but when I mean reality, I mean they talk a lot about taxes and how certain planets are poor because of their resources. They're not very sufficient. They're not very prosperous. I think that this book explains very well why certain planets like Coruscant and the mid-rim inner core of the galaxy are able to, be rich, and they're able to make a lot of money. Now we have outer rim territories like Tatooine, where Plagueis discovers, and this is how the pod racing in Phantom Menace is able to, even happen. Now, that's why this book is very intriguing to me. So, very cool. So, getting back onto Plagueis, Higo Damask. So, he is born on a planet called Mygeeto. Now, this is kind of where it's interesting, because where most Munes are born on Munilist, like I said earlier, he was born on this planet called Mygeeto. Now, to give you a frame of reference, Mygeeto is the snowy planet on Revenge of the Sith in Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, where they execute Order 66. Ki-Adi-Mundi is the one who suffers the death on that planet. So, kind of giving you a frame of reference there. If you want to look that up, that'll kind of help you see what I'm talking about there. So he was born on that snowy planet there. He was able to kind of get the feeling for the terrain and just the harsh weather there, and it kind of built him up to be more of a quiet, it's very stoic and a bit to himself, the best way to explain it. Plagueis is a very hard character to understand because there's so much to unpack. Now, the reason why he was born on Mygeeto instead of Munilist is because of his Force powers. Now, his parents, I believe in this book, have said that they had also had these Force powers, right? They had some sort of midichlorian count. Now, that is why Higo also has, Force powers. So they take him to this other planet so their family doesn't, find out that he is one with the Force, and so they take him there. His mother is very just all about her son, right? She's intent on making sure he's okay. Every night she makes sure that she goes over the day with him, his emotions, the way his mind works, his attitude, everything like that. Just a very caring mother. It kind of smothered him the way he talks about it in the point of view of in the book. And so his father was just busy with banking, doing things with his financial business and everything that had to do with his inheritance and all that stuff. So as he gets older, it talks about how messed up his mind is, and how he went through some things that were really affecting him, but also how he did these things for a reason. Now, it's so cool to see the things that he could have became, right? Because in this book, it explains how he was able to see Jedi, like, certain Jedi would come to see him, certain people would see him that he knew were of relevance to the Jedi, relevance to, people with Force powers with that kind of ability. And so basically, he really wasn't interested at all in that as a child, and it explains it in the book. Now, one day a Bith, so I know that's a species. A Bith are those guys in the cantina doing that, one song that you just hear on those memes, in the original trilogy. Now, anyway, that is someone who becomes his master, Plagueis' master. Now, his name is Darth Tenebris. Anyway, he comes to see him as a child, and talks to his mother and father, lets him know that, kind of, he's going to be training him. They kind of go over that. Now I'm giving you it in simple terms, but anyway, they know from, a young age that Higo is very talented. He has a lot kind of to unpack when it comes to his Force powers, and he kind of does some bad things with that, and it explains it in the book. It's very intense. Just, to give you an example, as a child, there are some younglings on the planet that he's on, and they're kind of going up the stairs, and they're rushing by him, and he looks to one kid and he says, well, if you're in a hurry, why don't you just jump out the window? And so I believe that these were powers that he used on a child to, force him to jump out the window, and he was also a child at the time, so this is when his mother and father were kind of like, well, this is crazy, we need to let you know, like, we also have these powers, and it's a gift but a curse type thing. Now, it is so interesting, and so many. This is just the beginning. Now, as he gets older, he becomes apprenticed to Darth Tenebris. He learns a lot of Sith alchemy. He learns many Sith powers, why the Sith are the way they are, the Rule of Two. The Rule of Two is something brought upon by Darth Bane thousands of years before this. So that is something that Tenebris follows in the Sith code. Now, Plagueis, in the beginning of this book, kills his master. Now, there's a way that he kills him. I can explain that to you, but it's going to take a very long time. So I would suggest to read this book. It's a very great book. You can audiobook it or just go find it at a Barnes & Noble or online somewhere, but it's a great book. So anyway, he kills his master, kind of the Sith way, and they kind of just have a little talk before he dies, letting him know, like, I'm not going to follow the Rule of Two. I'm going to kind of follow my own path. And so he goes down his own path, right? In his perspective, he thinks that he's not following this Rule of Two, when in reality, he does find Palpatine. Now, he finds Palpatine by going back home after he kills his master, talking to, the banking clan, everyone that he has to deal with. He has a job besides being a Sith. Now, people don't know, obviously, that he's a Sith. They are in hiding. So when he goes back home on Munilis to talk with the banking clan and get everything settled with their debts and, deal with loans and the real world of Star Wars, it's overwhelming and everything, but he has to hide who he really is. So eventually they end up talking about a planet called Naboo. Now, we hear about this planet, of course, everywhere in Star Wars. It's the home planet of Padme Amidala and Sheev Palpatine. Now, this planet is also home of the Gungans, like Jar Jar Binks. Really cool planet. So the reason why these guys are interested in Naboo is because it has plasma. Now, this plasma is obviously going to make a lot of dough, a lot of money. So in this book, this is kind of the setup for Phantom Menace, the first movie, episode 1. Little film error there. Anyway, Naboo is important because it has plasma. Now, Higo and the Intergalactic Banking Clan are going to use this kind of against Naboo because it's a primitive planet. Now, when they go to, the King of Naboo, I believe, and the people are trying to run an office for Naboo and try to make it a planet that will be able to use the Galactic Republic, things like that, for resources, they get upset, the people of Naboo, because they want to stay, architects, they want to stay, artists and things like that, philosophers. Now, Higo is a very cunning person. I may have said that wrong, but he's able to persuade people in his favor with money and with his kind of guile and his personality. He's really cool as a character, in my opinion. So when he gets to Naboo, he finds Palpatine, who at the time is 17. And he is interested in politics. He's very smart. Palpatine's a very intelligent person before he becomes this psychopathic Sith Lord. Now, I think their relationship is so interesting in the sense that he shows Palpatine a different point of view rather than just to be upset with life. It's so enthralling. Now, when he meets Palpatine, he finds him at his college and kind of just starts sitting there and trying to talk to him and, see who he really is, because he finds out that his father is very important in the political system. Now, during this time, a couple months kind of go by, he becomes his little side secret agent to undermine his father, Palpatine's father. Now, once Palpatine's father finds this all out, it becomes really intense for Palpatine. Plagueis is able to construct Palpatine's life in where he will become his apprentice, his slave, basically. The book is very cool in the way that it explains it. Now, when Palpatine becomes Plagueis' apprentice, it is very intense, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, right? The Sith believe that you have to use the Force. You are the Force. You use it. You don't let it use you. And it is just amazing to see both sides of the story. Now, in the movies, in a lot of things that we see, right, we look at the Jedi as good, and we see them as peacekeepers, and we see them as kind of monks, almost. And the way that Plagueis explains this to Palpatine while he's young and is his apprentice is very interesting. Now, Plagueis kind of talks about the Sith of old. He talks about many historical Sith that have made great feats, and he explains to Palpatine that while this is awesome, while this is amazing, we're going to do things that are even greater. We're going to become literally immortal. He talks about Darth Sion, who was immortal in a sense, where he was alive. His body was basically just zombie, just necrotic flesh, and very interesting, very weird. But anyway, Plagueis goes back to Megiddo with Palpatine at his young age, and this is their first assignment as, Sith Lord and apprentice, and he explains all these things to him. And during this time, right, it's snowy, it's very harsh winds, harsh weather, and Plagueis is wearing nothing but like a head cap and a robe and nothing underneath, right? Probably some trousers or something like that, I believe is what they say. And he explains to Palpatine how you have to become one with the weather, no matter what kind of species you are, what kind of person you are. You must become one with the pain, and not one with it, but you must, control your pain, use it for your, power. And during this time that he's talking to Palpatine, he rips open Palpatine's environment suit, and he kind of just slashes him a couple times, I believe, with his saber. And the way that the book explains it is just so beautiful, in my opinion. It's as weird as it sounds, because they are very descriptive in how they explain why the Sith are the way they are. Now, I believe there are some Sith that have good qualities to them and are Sith but are good. Now, that may sound kind of weird, right? Because we look at Sith and we see the red saber, we see what they do, and they seem evil. Now, for example, we have Count Dooku. Comes up a little bit later. He is Palpatine's apprentice as well. We all know who he is. Christopher Lee, great person, love him. Anyway, Count Dooku. Before he was Count Dooku, he was Jedi in the Jedi Order, and he is just a great character, very underrated. I'm so glad to see him show up. And to get back on track, he was a Jedi who felt emotion. He was very not by the book. He broke a lot of rules. There's a lot of books about him as well as a child, and they are very great. We can go over them later in a couple videos. But the point is that in the Jedi Order, they want you to suppress your emotions, suppress your feelings, and be one with the now, and whatever you feel, let that feel, in a way. Don't let that affect you. Don't let anything affect you. Don't have attachments. Very religious in a sense, a lot of rules. Now, he decided as a child to break a lot of those rules, and eventually as he got older, he had a couple of Padawans before Qui-Gon Jinn. I believe one, I'm sorry, but anyway, when Qui-Gon passed away from Darth Maul, it had turned him to the dark side because he wasn't able to feel those emotions correctly, in my opinion, and it made him fall to Palpatine's lap, fall into his lap. Now, going back into the Plagueis story, Plagueis kind of explains to Palpatine how he doesn't want to be like the Sith of old. He doesn't want to follow the, basic rule of two. He wants to do his own thing. Now, the reason why this is interesting is because the further the book goes along, Palpatine kind of starts to see Plagueis' faults. He starts to see where he is wrong in his perspective, in his passions. And so Plagueis is very smart in the scientific sense. We look at the Sith and I kind of see them as like scientists, they're very, or witchcraft, very like one with finding, the best way to explain the Sith to me is that like they are trying to like bend the Force to their will, and the Jedi are just chill with the Force. They want to just let it be with them, like if it's your friend, they're gonna be like, yeah, heck yeah, let's just chill together. Whereas if the Sith had a friend, they would want to take them over. They would want to be better than them at everything they do. Sith are very self-determined, whereas the Jedi want to be okay with everyone and love everyone, right? Now, the problem with doing that is that when you become a Jedi and you kind of suppress your emotion, you become numb to feeling, you lose sight of everything else. You become okay with the fact that people are not okay. Look at Yoda, for example. We have Anakin talking to him during episode 3 about how he sees pain in his dreams and there's visions that he has, and we see this in a lot of novels, but the point is that he goes to Yoda and tells him he has feelings that are not okay, and he thinks that he is feeling something not good, and Yoda just says, well, ignore it, basically. And so there is a problem when it comes to that. So Jedi and Sith, I believe, right, if Star Wars would probably balance out, right, if they didn't exist, but that's the whole point of Star Wars, is that we have them there for the writing. We have them there for the purpose of it, for the Skywalker saga. Now, as the book goes on, Palpatine becomes older, about 28 in the middle of the book, I'd say, or, quarter way through the book, and it talks about how he becomes a powerful person in office. Now, this is cool to me because Palpatine learns a lot from Plagueis when it comes to being able to have social skills and talk with people and kind of code or mask the way he talks to certain people. He learns certain Sith skills, certain Jedi skills even. He learns both. That's the cool thing about what I like about Plagueis and Palpatine is they learn everything that they can to use it against people because they know that they can only trust themselves. Now, that's the craziest part, right? That's why Plagueis tells Palpatine when he first meets him that he just wants him to be his partner because he knows that if he becomes his apprentice, he will, take control and try to take over. That's why they don't want to follow the rule of two because Plagueis wants to live forever. So he doesn't want Palpatine to kill him. Now, when Palpatine's 28, he has learned a lot of the lightsaber forms, basically all of them. He is, practicing all the time. They are obviously under the radar. Now, the book explains this in great detail when they are doing their training sessions and everything like that, and Plagueis is kind of distracting him while they're doing this, and they are trying to basically, the best way to give an example is like Cobra Kai, or karate, compared to someone who's like a street fighter or a boxer, Karate is very self-defense. When you look at a Jedi, it's like that. They're very defensive. They stay on the defense most of the time. You do have a couple Jedi in the Order that are very offensive, right? Anakin Skywalker. There's obviously a couple others, but he is the main one who's very offensive. Now, we have Mace Windu as well. His lightsaber form Vapod is a mix of the dark and light side. Now, but going back into Palpatine, he decided, he thought that, lightsabers were kind of, just useless, that they were just kind of a waste of time, but he still decided to learn the forms anyway, just to show people, like, I am the best, and so he felt that he was the best. He felt like he had the most potential as a child because he grew up in such a rich home, yet his family despised him because of the way that he was. He was, you know, kind of a punk. He got into a pod racing accident and, you know, had killed 2 people. So in this book, it explains how his family didn't really like him because of the way he acted and his attitude. And Plagueis kind of compared his life in that sense to him as well, where he explains his family, how he received his inheritance. You know, he is the last of his family members because he tactically, you know, took them out. You know, so his father had a disease anyway, and related to all of his other siblings. Now, his other family, Plagueis' other family, did not like him because of the fact, first of all, he was born on Megiddo. Second of all, he is basically not a pure-blooded Mune because of the fact that, you know, he wasn't born on Megiddo. He was a half-clan, basically. So there's a lot of detail to that, but the point is Plagueis wasn't very appreciated in his species. Now, most of that ties into the fact that he wasn't born on his planet, of course, and then the fact that he has the Force, and I believe some of them find out. Now, he receives all of their inheritance by basically killing them off, you know, very Sith way. And he explains that to Palpatine, which interests him, and he explains to him, you know, of course I'll, you know, be by your side. Now I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but towards the end of this book, it is closer to the Phantom Menace. Now, Plagueis in Legends is alive during the Phantom Menace, where Anakin's a young boy, that pod racing movie with Darth Maul, just to give people who don't know Star Wars, you know, simpler terms with it. So, during this time, Palpatine becomes, I believe, Senator of Naboo, or he becomes, you know, he becomes powerful in office, and so they start to celebrate. You know, a lot of things happen during this time as well, before this. So before Palpatine is in office, a man named Larsh Hill is a part of the Intergalactic Bacon Clan. Now, he works with Plagueis, and so he is about to get an award during this time. This is a couple days before, I believe, the Palpatine going into office. Now, anyway, when Larsh Hill goes to get this award, secret agents of some sort, right, come in, execute them, and Plagueis gets very injured. Now, this is where he kind of learns that he is becoming immortal. He's learning the path to become immortal. And Palpatine is kind of seeing this. Now, long story short, Plagueis is learning this. He's kind of sick. He's starting to heal very fast. Now, Palpatine is in office, and one night they celebrate. Plagueis gets very drunk and falls asleep, and Palpatine kind of just starts to sit there and think in his mind, right, how things are going to play out for him, and why he just despises Plagueis, and eventually kills him with electricity through his little monitor for his hearts. Now, because of he's damaged. So after he kills him, this is where he gets, you know, he becomes a politician in office, a senator. And so he sees Anakin, they talk in the book, and he also sees Obi-Wan, and so that's around the end of the book where he says a few quotes that are very important to the Phantom Menace. Now, I know that's kind of a lot to unpack. I kind of talk really fast, and it's all over the place, but Darth Plagueis is such a cool character. Now, he is someone who just really explains the lore of Star Wars super well in his narrative. I love it so much, so just wanted to talk about that, and I hope you guys appreciate this video. So thank you so much. If you could like, subscribe, that would be awesome. Have a great night, guys. Thank you.